So this is a presentation made by Csatari, who's the PTL of the Edge Cloud project in OPNFV, and she couldn't be here, so she asked me to deliver the presentation. So I'm really just the messenger. So hopefully I can answer some questions. And really it's just an introduction. We have pretty limited time, so I want to give you a sort of flavor of what the Edge Cloud project is about, some of the collaboration going on, what have been some of the main outputs and next steps, and some thinking on the topic of Edge. Now this project started about a year ago, and just to point out, so this was, so OPNFV went through a process. There was a task force looking at Edge Cloud this about a year ago, and came up with some recommendations to the TSC for Edge, and how OPNFV can uniquely contribute to Edge Cloud, the Edge Cloud arena. And so this is one project known as the Edge Cloud project. And the initial scope was to really look at creating an NFV reference platform for telco Edge Cloud. So OPNFV is it's a reference. That's what OPNFV is. Or an OPNFV release is a reference platform, NFV reference platform. And so we want to look at this project extending that to Edge Cloud, and then looking at the requirements specific to Edge Cloud, creating scenarios. So again, if you look at what an OPNFV release is, it consists of scenarios. A scenario is really, you could think of it as a sort of a cut through of all the ingredients and options and configurations. So that may be, the type of SDN controller, whether you have high availability, that kind of thing. Okay, so this is just showing some of the participants from member companies in the Edge Cloud project. And so you can see that you have some carriers represented, some vendors, so there's a mix. And initially the project went through doing some investigation, looking at Edge use cases, specifically for telco services, such as gateways, CDN type services, multi-edge MEC, multi-edge compute type services, characteristics of Edge clouds, and looking at what are the relevant test cases specific to Edge, what are data center requirements. So this would be something like a regional central office. And then in terms of defining a reference architecture, Edge specific profiles, the relationship with various NFV elements or ingredients, and then management of hierarchical Edge clouds. So typically look at sort of clouds of clouds, or relationship between different or multiple edges in a highly distributed Edge cloud scenario, and then some of the key technologies. Okay, and I'm just kind of going fast here because I don't want to use up all the time. So to date, if you look at where the collaboration has been, it's mostly been with OpenStack, and specifically the Edge Compute Working Group, looking at requirements and test cases. There's been collaboration with Keystone Identity Federation. I'll come on to that in a minute. And then image management with Glance, and acceleration technologies. And then there's also been some interaction with, from the orchestration perspective, Kubernetes, ONAP, then SDN controllers, ODL, ONOS, and then some initial investigations or discussions with Acrano. as far as the outputs to date, G is the Gambia release, so that was released, I believe the first version was in, I think, December. And here there was an Edge Cloud requirements document was published as part of the release documentation for Gambia, and there's the link. So I won't go onto the link now, again, just for time constraints. And then there was this collaboration with the Keystone project in OpenStack, and a demo, did a joint demo at ONS in Europe at the end of 2018, and that looked at two OpenStack deployments, and then there was simulated some delay and packet loss between those deployments, and then dealt with looked at how do you deal with verification, identity issues in those kind of that kind of an edge cloud scenario. And again, there's a link here where you can go and have a look at a presentation on that. Then this idea of a pharoah specification. Pharoah is a specification in OPNFV which describes, you could think of it as a baseline deployment environment, meaning compute, networking, and storage. And so it provides a common specification where anybody can take that and go and set up a test lab or an environment that is it's a well-known, it's a known environment to go and deploy an OPNFV scenario. So the idea was to come up with an edge variant for that. And then there have been a number of test cases proposed, and again, there's an Etherpad page where you can go and have a look at that. How are we doing on time? How much time do we have? Okay, so I can keep going for like 5 more minutes. 20 minutes left. Okay, so need to finish this up in 5 minutes. This is just one example of an output, and this is actually based on, it's a reference architecture, so it's based on China Mobile requirements, based on their measurements and requirements around latency between different sites in an edge deployment. So that's very useful because this is all kind of real end user requirements. And then here's another example of some of test cases or categories of test cases for using OpenStack in an edge environment, ranging from reliability, interoperability of multiple OpenStack deployments, performance, etc. So again, I won't go into the details right now. So in terms of next steps, the project's looking at doing more work on the edge pharoah specification, defining details of different flavors of that spec for edge-specific use cases. Second thing is test cases and actually running those test cases, so expanding a test suite, running those, and then one other point here is that really, like all open source projects, it relies on contributions by developers. So if anybody's interested in contributing or finding out more about the work being done in the Edge Cloud project, would love to hear from you. Can we have a time check, please? 20 minutes. Okay, so I'll keep going for another couple of minutes before handing over. So this is just capturing some issues or thoughts about edge, and so types of things that problems that need to be solved or being worked on. So the first one is about OpenStack performance and the need for lightweight variants in a distributed environment. And then the second issue to consider is about using user data and project data in multiple edge clouds. So for example, where you have a single database that's maintaining all this data, and you have these multiple edge sites deployed. So how do you manage that? How do you manage roles? And how do you deal with security and reliability? And then identity management with single sign-on in a multi-cloud environment. That's a second point. Image distribution. So again, in a multiple edge cloud environment, how do you maintain synchronization of those images? How do you distribute those at fast enough speed to meet the requirements of all the edge nodes? And how do you maintain reliability and security and that kind of thing? And then finally, when you have acceleration resources, which are very important in many edge scenarios. So how do you deal with customized acceleration? How do you deal with binding acceleration resources and managing those resources? Okay, so I think this is where I'll stop and hand over, and then hopefully we've got a few minutes at the end maybe to ask some questions or have a quick discussion.
All right, so my name is Csatari. I'm working in the open source program office of Nokia, and I'm responsible for clouds and containers there. And I'm doing some work in the OpenStack Foundation's Edge Computing Group, and I'm doing some small things in the OPNFV Edge project. So in the second part of the presentation, I will talk to you a bit about the OpenStack Foundation's Edge Computing group. This is a presentation by Ildikó, who is the leader of the group. And if we still have some time, I have an overview presentation of let's say, the most important infrastructure-related edge projects. So let's see how fast I will be. So let's cover first the Edge Computing Group. So this is a this is a group under the OpenStack Foundation. So it's not an OpenStack working group, and because of this is a bit like special. So there are no, let's say, official titles and stuff like that. So this is just a couple of people who would like to make this edge thing happen. And this was started in the OpenStack Summit Boston 2017 with a Verizon keynote where Beth from Verizon described that in an edge cloud infrastructure, OpenStack have a critical role. And after this, there was an OpenDev conference in San Francisco dedicated only to edge. And there, some people started to think about a white paper about edge cloud infrastructures, and they created a white paper which describes how an edge cloud infrastructure should be built up and how what problems should an edge cloud infrastructure solve. And this white paper is accessible from the OpenStack Foundation's web pages. And then we started to gather in the different summits and PTGs of OpenStack. One thing what I would like to highlight is the Dublin PTG, when we had a 2 days workshop. And that was, I think, the foundation of this edge computing group. So in this 2 days workshop, we generated lots of high-level requirements for the edge cloud infrastructures, and we also started to collect use cases for edge cloud, and later on we derived requirements from these use cases. And in this Dublin workshop was the first realization of the importance of the management of the edge cloud infrastructure. So it's not enough that you have like a small condensed compute cloud instances, but you have to be able to manage these edge cloud instances in your edge cloud infrastructure, because if you have, like, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of clouds in your infra, the management will be a very important topic. Other important thing is that during the lifetime of the Edge Working Group is that the OpenStack Foundation, let's say, opened up to other projects than the OpenStack itself. So they had Starling X, which is let's say a full implementation of an edge cloud stack, and that's an OpenStack Foundation project. And they also have Airship, which is like an infrastructure deployment project with some edge capabilities, which is also an OpenStack Foundation project. And Starling X made their first release last October. So they are like really a working community with lots of Intel members, by the way. And we continue the work. So in the next Open Infrastructure Summit, we will have lots of sessions about Edge, and in the PTG after the summit, we will have a half day or maybe a full day workshop about Edge. Okay, interesting. Okay, so as I mentioned, there is this edge computing white paper. Ildiko included the link. So they defined, starting from the use cases, the requirements, what kind of scenarios can we have, and what are the, let's say, high-level requirements for an edge cloud infrastructure in the white paper. The group itself is like working on several topics at the same time. We have a use cases. I wouldn't call it a subgroup, but we have a separate meeting for use case collection and organization. So in the Edge Working Group's wiki, you can click on the use cases, and there is like a whole list of use cases for edge computing itself. So like explaining why do you need edge cloud infrastructure. If you are looking for like justification or reasons to do edge computing, just go to the use cases part of the edge computing group's wiki, and you will get some. Also, we are collecting these requirements for the EAS layer itself. So what sort of functionalities are missing from for the infrastructure part, and we are trying to find the gaps between the current implementation of OpenStack and also Kubernetes and these requirements. Also, we are working together with OpenStack projects like Keystone, for example, which was mentioned by Trevor also, because we believe that Keystone Federation is a key component of this edge cloud infrastructure, and Keystone Federation is, let's say, relatively new feature and needs some contributions. Also, we are working with the Glance team to find a way to distribute the images of the virtual machines to the edge sites. Also, we are working on a set of we call them reference architectures or deployment architectures. So how can you this is currently very much OpenStack focused, but how can you organize the OpenStack services in a way that they formulate an edge cloud infrastructure? So there are two big ways to do it. Doing a centralized infrastructure setup when you have a central site, which is, let's say, not functional in itself, but it's a key point to distribute data needed for the satellite sites. And there is the other architecture, which is distributed, where every site is functional and can run workloads, and these are somehow connected and working together. So we defined, based on our work, these two scenarios, which are basically four, because both of the two have two subvariants. So we have one with the centralized control plane, where the central sites are functional, so you can run workloads on the central sites also, and the edge sides also. But the satellite sites are dependent on the centralized sites. So if there is a network breakage between the small edge and the centralized DC, you will not be able to do any lifecycle management operation on the workloads running on the small edge. But the workloads will still run, so they will be not, let's say, hurt, but you will be not able to start new virtual machines, for example, or change the state of virtual machines. Because so that's one problem of the edge cloud infrastructures, that the network connectivity is not guaranteed. So you can have a connection to the edge cloud infrastructure via I don't know, LT in a box thingy, for example. And this centralized control plane can be scaled to different sizes. So you can introduce this medium edge site also to the system. The other big category of the architectures is a distributed control plane, when the centralized site is not functional in itself. So it contains only services which are needed by other sites to run their workloads. This means that the satellite sites are fully functional. So even if the network connectivity is broken, and you can somehow maybe go there locally and issue commands, it will be able to change the state of the virtual machines. So this is the trade-off, and it depends on the use case which architecture option you would like to use. So this is something what we are working on, and so I personally have a feeling that there are thousands, or maybe not thousands, but several tens of other options for edge cloud infrastructure architectures. So maybe one thing what the HQPT group could do is to collect and somehow categorize these architecture options. Yeah, I think I explained these. Yeah, so what is happening now is besides on what I just mentioned, we have a weekly meeting actually two kind of meetings. So we have one use cases meeting every week, and we have one like group meeting every week. So if you're interested in the activities of the group, this is the best way to connect to us. We also have an IRC channel where you can chat with us, and of course a mailing list and a nice wiki page. And the new thing what we are trying to do now is to organize these hacking days. So we collected a set of problems into an Etherpad, mostly related to Keystone and Keystone testing, and we would like to gather either like physically or virtually and work together on these problems. So these problems currently are, I don't know, testing the Keystone plugin created for federation testing, or I don't know, create new federation testing for Keystone, or fix federation-related bugs in Keystone. So, like small things what we could work on, and we would like to work on these together, because I know working on things together is better than alone. All right, and we will have two panels in the ONS. One is on Thursday about the edge computing group itself. So in this presentation, we'll explain what the group does and what are our achievements. So basically, like very similar things what I just mentioned, but this will be more like a panel discussion. So we will have some, let's say, interaction between the different persons in the panel. The other presentation is on Friday, or actually that's also a panel, and this is about these several open source projects about Edge, and discussion why do we need this many open source projects about Edge. And like about this topic, let me just like show you very quickly, because I'm running out of time. Yeah, let me show you only one slide from the second part of the presentation. So this slide shows the most important, not even all of the infrastructure-related projects which are dealing with Edge, and I put them to this well-known HCNFV manual architecture figure. And let me just like go through on the projects very quickly, and then I will finish the presentation. So let's start from the top. So ONAP is let's say a management and automation platform. So they are sitting on the top of the Etsy Mano reference architecture, and they are they also have an Edge project, or Edge, I think it's project, that's how they call it. And also they have a multi-Vim feature in ONAP where they would like to connect to several Vims, so they could manage several Edge Cloud instances. So they have some activities in this area. Then we have EcoRhino, which is a project for integrating full Edge stacks. So this would include everything starting from the hardware, the infrastructure layer. They also have some plans to define some APIs for the application management. So they would like to cover the full stack, but they would like to integrate together existing open source components, and they would like to describe them in different blueprints. Then we have OpenStack. I think I just covered OpenStack, so I will not waste any more words on it. Then we have Kubernetes. So in Kubernetes, there is an edge working group, and they are doing mostly IoT-related things, but they are thinking about how can Kubernetes work in an edge environment. Then we have Starling X. This is the project that I just mentioned. So this is a full edge cloud infrastructure implementation, and they also have a synchronization framework and software management framework for the edge cloud instances. We have Airship. That's, I think I also mentioned this. So this is an infrastructure lifecycle management project. So you can start infrastructures or deploy infrastructures even to remote sites with Airship. So this is why it's important. And I think we covered OPNFV. And the last one is OCP. So this is a bit special project. They are defining hardware in an open source way, and they have a specification for hardware optimized for edge. And with this one, I think I stopped the presentation because I'm over time.